Hey there.
Oh my god, oh my god.
How you doing? You better be careful. There's a creeper behind you.
Don't. Wait. Don't. That's good. Oh my god, I really do love you. My Discord name is Kermit. And my Instagram name is Kermit is Hot. I love you.
Oh, damn. Love you
I
too.
love you.
Got something for you.
No.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. You said you love me, so.
No, but not your Willy.
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, now it's Too Late with Alan Mosley.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Woo! Guys, welcome back for another episode of It's Too Late. I am your host, Alan Mosley, joined as always by the #1 producer in late night. It's Dave Willimowski. Dave! Dave, how are you doing? Yeah.
Oh.
Not you, Willie.
Doing good.
Yeah.
No. Time's flying, man. It doesn't feel like it's been 2 weeks. That's wild. I'm glad to be back. How you doing?
It doesn't feel like it's been. It feels like we just did a show, but it's time is relative. It's like,
yeah.
Because I had told people that if we don't sell more tickets or get more memberships, then we're just not going to do a show. And I called their bluff, didn't I, Dave? We just didn't do it. We just called the whole thing off.
Actually, vacation a little.
Yeah, I went out of town. It's like 22-hour round trip driving down to Florida and back from where I was. Yes, It's a long drive. Did it over the course of a few days. I did all right though. It's been some years since I had made that trip, and I was worried that maybe like my road tripping days might be behind me. Because I just haven't gone that far. In one sitting in a while, but it turned out okay. Actually have a picture of me and Mike from hanging out with Mahari down in Tarpon Springs. I know we had a lot of fun. Yeah, just hanging out on the couch there, watching some college basketball. Had a good time. Boy, missed a lot of stuff in the news though over the past week. Did you see that Democratic Representative Jasmine Crockett made some headlines? At a recent speaking engagement, she referred to Texas Governor Greg Abbott as Governor Hot Wheels, which, of course, Abbott is, he's a paraplegic. He uses a wheelchair. Do we have a picture of Governor Abbott?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there he is.
Oh, yeah.
He's right there.
Well, that explains that.
Well, I know. Now I get it. Honestly, people were doing all the feigned outrage of, I can't believe she said that to a handicapped person. I kind of thought it was funny, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, also back in the news is Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, since he and his running mate Kamala Harris lost to Donald Trump. Many have wondered, what are the Democrats going to do to right the ship? What are they going to do to get back on track?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'll tell you, Tim Walz has some ideas. Check this out.
And we let them define the issue on immigration. We let them define the issue on DEI, and we let them define what woke is. We got ourselves in this mess because we weren't bold enough to stand up and say, you damn right we're proud of these policies. We're going to put them in. And we're going to execute them.
Oh.
That's right.
Okay.
Tim Walz thinks that the reason why they lost is because they weren't woke enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But actually, that wasn't even all. He went even so far as to let the mask slip all the way off. Take a look at this one.
I've been saying this. I think we need shadow governments.
No.
I'm sorry, what, Tim? Tim Walz thinks that we need a shadow government that just can run things despite whatever it is you guys vote for.
Want.
He even said himself, I've been saying this. I've been saying this. Do we have a picture of Tim Walz running a shadow government?
Oh yeah, here.
Yeah, there he is.
He's looking healthy there.
Well, I think those people just live forever. Yeah. Of course, you guys may recall the recent visit to the White House by Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, which he had a little bit of a black eye for Zelensky. But also received a lot of criticism around Washington for refusing to wear a suit to a formal meeting between heads of state instead of, going with the whole tracksuit thing, looking like he's a military man or whatever. Can you imagine that, Dave? Can you imagine having a meeting in the Oval Office and being dressed so disrespectfully?
I can't even imagine it.
Anyway, here's Chris Rock, or excuse me, Kid Rock.
Oh,
the best part of that picture is that that's not AI. That actually is the real.
That happened.
That actually is the real. Yeah. I didn't look into the giant golden revolver on the desk, and I don't want to know.
Yeah.
And finally this evening, in a little business news, the bodacious restaurant chain Hooters has declared bankruptcy.
Oh.
Now, don't be scared. An investment group led by the original founders of the restaurant are actually buying back the property, promising to keep the chain around for a long time to come. A lot of people actually kind of argued over, how did we get here? What brought Hooters down to its knees? And the original founders claimed that the problem with Hooters was that they tried to really morph into this like family friendly, bring the kids, everyone's welcome kind of an image. But I think we know what the people yearn for.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we take our first break, guys, let me tell you about tonight's sponsor. Dave, do you ever have trouble sleeping?
Oh, I'm exhausted. Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. Well, boy, have I got the product for you. Check this out. It's Sleep Retard from Shonen. It's your one tablet a night solution for sleepless nights. Each box comes with a month's supply of Sleep Retard so you can wake up refreshed. Try their new Zest blend today. Is waking up hard? Well, Sleep Retard by Shonen. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. Guys, we're going to be back with the meme of the week. What are you doing?
Oh.
What are you doing right now?
Oh, I know what I did.
We just nailed a perfect monologue. And you're hit.
It's the cat,
You can reduce the problem by one if you just simply kill yourself on the spot.
Guys, we're going to be back with the meme of the week in the viewer mail right after this commercial break. Don't go away. Dave, risk fuels reward. Your bold move will pay off.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Work for Kermit.
One thing that we didn't have time to talk about there in the monologue is, did you hear the news about Sydney Sweeney breaking off her engagement to producer Jonathan Davino? The wedding's off, my friend.
I actually did for some reason. I heard about that.
Well, you know what that means. So you're saying there's a chance.
Oh. Alan.
What?
It's not healthy. This isn't healthy.
Why do you always do this? Why don't you want us to be happy?
Bro.
Look at us.
All right. We gotta talk.
So, real talk for a second. I don't know. Yeah, let's do it. Let's play the bartender music. This will be a good bartender. So I was talking to this girl this week.
Oh.
Her name was Allison.
Oh.
You know, you check most of the boxes. You know, you know my list of requirements.
Oh yeah. They're pretty strict.
I'd say she was 29.
Okay,
so,
that's fine. Yeah.
So comfortably above the Dalton line, no ifs and maybes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I would say she was probably a 9.5. So, you know, hideous by my standards, but you know.
Yeah.
And then she says to me, "How do you like to read books?" Let's go. Like, do you mean like Kindle, hardcover, audiobook? Like, is that, you know, like I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And she goes, no. Like, when I read a book, before I like even buy it off the shelf, I read the final I go pick it up off the shelf and I read the last chapter to see if I like the ending. And if I do, then I'll get it. I was like,
wow. What do you...
Are you fucking retarded? Like, you know?
What do you do with that?
I was like, I'm sorry, I have to do it at this point. How could you know if you liked the ending when you don't even know what's happening or who the characters are? Because her thing was, it's like, well, I want to know if my favorite character lives to the end. What?
Huh?
But how do you know who your favorite character is? So it's not me, right? You know?
No.
Okay, all right. So anyway, block. Back to swiping, man. We'll get him. We'll get him, Dave.
Yeah, we'll get him.
All right. Hey, Dave.
Yes, Alan.
What time is it?
Time for Meme of the Week. No. Oh.
Yeah.
You're Chinese. Holy shit, 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 you're Chinese.
Yep.
I love that guy. I want him to come to the live event. But we do have a bonus meme. Check out the bonus meme.
Uh-oh.
And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul.
Wow. Wow.
How are we doing on time? Oh my God, look at this.
We're doing all right.
We're having the perfect show, except for you ruining everything at the end of the vlog.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. All right. Let's answer some viewer mail. Why?
Oh. Then you left me.
Patrick McFarlane writes, "Dear Alan and Dave, is Patrick McFarlane the best follow on Twitter?" Yes, Patrick's going to come back on the show here soon. He's coming on to our viewer mail to advertise himself.
Oh, okay. I see what's going on. All right.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's the best.
No, don't do that.
Check him out.
All right. Well, the thing is, though, but he didn't even leave his at. He just says, "Is Patrick McFarlane the best follow on Twitter?" If he was smart, he would have is at Patrick, underscore whatever. But he didn't do that. So I guess we'll never know.
Yeah.
Justin Campbell writes, "Dear Alan and Dave, do you like anime? If so, what's your favorite Studio Ghibli production? Dave, do you like anime? Be honest.
All right, so I kind of tried, like, because I'm like, everybody's so into this, there's got to be something to it. So I sat down, I did watch a few, but I don't have a lot of watching time, and Mary has zero interest, and most of the time we're watching something together, so I haven't really given it a chance, and I have no idea what this Ghibli thing is, but it's everywhere. So
what you're saying is I gotta work on Mary. If I get Mary to say she
Mary's
wants to watch a series, then she's gonna come to you and say, "Hey, let's cue this up."
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the good, best shot.
Okay. I know. I know how to do it now. All right. Ironically, so Justin, do you like anime? Yes. I mean, good.
Yeah.
Like, just like with anything, there's good and there's not so good. You know?
Yeah.
I don't like the stuff that's like really hardcore Asian-y, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like it's just really over the top cartoonish, and the way the characters, it's just, it's very exaggerated. Like I like realistic, more, adult themed. Not in that kind of adult theme, but
but sometimes.
But ironically, even with all of the artwork that we've shared tonight, I've never actually watched anything from Studio Ghibli.
Yeah.
I just steal their artwork. That's all I do. I tell you what, though, dude, not that one. Does that not look like they nailed that shit? I just told it, make me in this, and it just did it. It just did it. I did swap out Mike Maharry. Yeah. Look at that. I ain't no bitch. Look where my hand is.
No.
Yeah, I didn't tell it to do that. It just knows. It knows. Yeah. I sent that to Mike Maharry, and because that's his living room. I was like, "Hey, I swapped you out for Sydney Sweeney. I hope it's okay."
He's sure he understands.
Yeah, he thought that she was delightful when she came to visit last weekend.
Aw.
Yeah. Aaron Kentner writes, "Dear Alan and Dave, if there were 3 days left before the world ends, how would you spend it?" 3 whole days?
Jeez.
Yeah, what are you going to do for 3 days?
I don't know, just worry about the world ending, I guess.
Yeah. I thought you were...
What are you going to do? I don't know. Yeah, I'm doing a triple double.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I bet, knowing you, you'd say, well, nobody was, so I picked up a 12 because nobody wanted to work.
Yeah.
So.
Nobody wanted to come in for some reason.
Yeah. See, when you extend it out to 3 days, now it becomes dangerous, because if it's like 3 minutes, you don't really have time to do anything elaborate. It's mostly just get right with Jesus is pretty much where you're at.
Yeah,
but 3 days, I can go on a hunt in 3 days.
Get out the list.
We can't expect God to do all the work. That's all I'm saying. Ryan Seifert writes, "Dear Alan and Dave, why can't liberals just admit that they're wrong about everything and retarded?"
Is that a callback to that Tim Walz?
Well, the thing is, Ryan, is that they're not trying to be right. They're trying to win.
Yeah, that's true.
They just want control. And you could substitute, he said liberals. He didn't necessarily say Democrat. Liberals are just the worst. They're just the worst. So I'll let that go. But I mean, if he had said Democrats, then I would have said, well, you can put Republicans in there and been like, they're pretty retarded. They're just closeted gays as opposed to the parading gays on the other side.
Deeply closeted.
Yeah. And finally this evening, Mary Lynn Wilimowski writes, "Dear Alan and Dave."
Uh-oh.
I'm excited for this one. "Would you consider yourself a backseat driver?" Dave. Would you consider yourself a backseat driver? Dave?
Okay, so yeah, we got one vehicle now, so she comes pick me up at work, and we don't switch out, she's like, "I'll drive home." I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of myself for how much I keep inside. I think I'm doing a really good job. I mean, I'm kind of passenger seat driver. It's just, it's like, I'm like, you're going to try to turn left from here. I mean, you could have went away from the intersection, this busy intersection. Well, yay, you made it. It's fine. It works. We get places. She survives the day without me, so she must be doing okay. But sometimes I just can't keep it in.
Oh no. That's gonna happen next time. She's gonna be driving, and you're gonna start saying, "Why don't you?" And she's gonna say, "Oh no."
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. I'm not trying to fan the flames, but let me ask you this one question.
Follow up.
Do you do the thing where, okay, so Mary's right here driving, you're in the passenger seat. Do you do the thing where when you feel like it's time to stop, you start pushing your foot down on the floorboard? Where do you?
Or maybe like, oh, she's gonna have to stop fast. I better brace myself on the dashboard here.
Yeah. You're like grabbing the thing and you're pushing on the. Yeah. You do that? Be honest.
Maybe a little.
Okay, all right.
Noticed it, but it could happen.
So Mary, if you got Dave's answer, it was you should just be happy that he's not worse.
Yeah. But that applies to a lot in our marriage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Well, we'll talk more about that later. But in the meantime, we will be back with tonight's guest, Joseph Solis-Mullen of the Libertarian Institute, right after this commercial break. Enjoy.
There exists a world that you can only reach between 4:20 and 4:24 a.m. Before you travel, I must advise you of a few rules. Rule number 1. Nothing is as it seems. Things may appear familiar, a childhood friend, a street you once knew, but these are mere facsimiles, designed to lure you into a false sense of security. Do not be fooled. Rule number 2. If you see any statues, do not look at them for too long, no matter how lifelike they appear. They are not statues, and they are waiting for you to notice them. Rule number 3. If you hear footsteps or running behind you, stop immediately and do not turn around. The thing, whatever it is, thrives on fear. Rule number 4, the most important rule of them all. You must leave before the 3rd chime. You will hear faint bells in the distance as time passes. The 1st chime is your warning. The 2nd is your final chance to leave. If the bells chime a 3rd time and you are still there, you have now become one with this dimension. If this happens, I'm truly sorry. Good luck.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Our guest this evening is a political scientist, an economist, a professor of history and politics, and an author here to talk about his latest book that I've got right here, which is, of course, The National Debt and You, What It Is, How It Works, and Why It Matters. All questions we're going to delve into here in just a moment. Our guest, of course, is Joseph Solis-Mullen. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Alan. Thank you so much for having me back. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you, and before we get into some of the nit and gritty questions that you answer in your book, I want to talk right off the bat. You say right in the very beginning, in the introduction, in regards to the length of the book, long-form reading is a tragically dying art, which, of course, our friend Mike Meharry of the 10th Amendment Center famously told me the very first thing that I ever published. He said, quote, "Nobody reads." So I know that you've just kind of decided, I guess, to take the position of I'm not going to fight it. No one's going to pick my book up off the shelf if it's 1,000 pages. I'm going to try to condense all in which this is a skill in of itself, is to take, big topics of major importance and to put them into bite-sized pieces that people can digest. So what kind of challenge was that for you?
Well, you're right. I mean, as an academic, and I read as a hobby, right? I read at work. I read as a hobby. I'm always reading. I like reading, but I'm not unaware of what the survey data tells us. And so I don't try to fight it. I am trying to write very timely books. A lot of my scholarly work is very dry, very arcane. It's it's going to be read by just a couple of people, but it's not timely stuff that really matters. They're historiographical debates about US foreign policy from 1870. It's just not that. It's not timely. It's not important in the same way that the topics I write about in books. So in my academic writing, I don't worry about whether or not I'm being long-winded or too much. It's for a journal. Number one, I don't invest time in a book unless it's an issue that I think is vitally important. So I wrote the book about China because I felt like the narrative surrounding China was simply too one-sided. Someone had to simply plainly state the case to the contrary. Sure. And then for this one, the national debt has completely fallen off the table of public discussion. I remember when I was in college and the Tea Party was insurgent, and the debt was crossing the $10 trillion threshold mark, and it was a very vibrant issue in public discourse. It was always being talked about. Now, other than Thomas Massey's debt badge, which has the running clock, if you've never seen it, he wears a debt badge. It's not mentioned. It's not mentioned anymore, and obviously there's been some talk since Donald Trump came to office with his Department of Government Efficiency, so-called. And I've been covering that from the very beginning because I've written previously about prior efforts to cut government spending and make government more efficient, et cetera, and showing how these things failed and how what Elon and his team are doing aren't really going to significantly change the dynamics of permanent deficits and continually piling up debt, because the problems that we have are structural. And it's a boring topic, and I understand that. And so even more than the China book, because the China book, like it or not, it has kind of that allure of like danger and mystery to it. So people are like kind of into that. It's a little more intriguing than like the mechanics of debt and of interest rates. Like, already you feel a yawn coming on, right? So I was so concerned with like nail it down, very succinct, and then leaving like gaps in the reading where even for me, like when I pick up a book, if I encounter a chapter that's like 25-30 pages long, I'm kind of like, sheesh. Yeah. Because I don't want to stop mid-chapter. So I always am very cognizant of like, okay, it's been 4 or 5 pages. I need to find a way to make a break now. Because I want people to feel like, hey, I got 5 minutes. I'm going to read a little bit of this. Sure. And not to be left mid-page of mid-chapter, it's just not good. And so that's how I approach it. It is a challenge, but I just kind of approach it as writing a series of articles on the same topic that follow one right after the other, if that makes sense. Sure. I write weekly articles at the Libertarian Institute. I write a couple pieces a month at the Mises Institute. So I write a lot of articles. And so when I'm approaching a book like this, I try to approach it in that same way. Give them a bite-sized, topical chapter, cut it, move on to the next, and just build that way. So that's how I approach it.
Well, we're going to delve into the 3 questions that are posed in your title here shortly. But since you had brought up Massey, and I've seen the little national debt counter that he's given some of those away out as gifts to some of his guests and stuff. I wish I had one. But something that he mentioned very recently in the latest whole CR budget boondoggle vote, because screw him for being a conservative and being against debt, right? One of the things that he had mentioned was, I'm looking at their own projections, the party's projections, the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office's projections. And he made the point of very emphasizing that under the rosiest of circumstances, this is the rosiest projections. They're saying that's already not acceptable. I think it's going to be way worse. And sure enough, right in the very beginning, before you get to the introduction, you've got a quote here. Under current law, debt is expected to rise from $9 trillion this year to $16.1 trillion by 2020. Throughout CBO's 10-year projection, so obviously this is from 2010, the U.S. debt is expected to exceed 60% of GDP, the ceiling allowed by the European Monetary Union. By 2020, the debt will be nearly 70% of GDP. Now, that's not good, I don't think any of us would say, but unfortunately, of course, that ended up being a rosy estimate. You note in here that by 2020, it had actually topped 23 trillion and had already exceeded 100% of GDP by then. So if you would, kind of talk to us just a little bit before we start diving into these big bullet points of how do they get away with that? How do they get away with we're going to put this data together, and this is the data that we're sending to the various different reps and Senate offices to say this is the budget you're voting on, and these are our projections. But it's like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. These estimates, which are already not good, and I would be voting no on every bill, but those are always the rosiest possible estimates that never, never, never turn out to be true. How do they keep getting away with that scam?
Well, when it comes to the 2010 data, I guess I should say a couple of things. It's true, the projections were off, but I suppose I would just say let's just steel man it. Let's assume that there's no duplicity or intent to deceive involved. Let's just say that these are the best economists available who are making the best projections they can with the most data they can accumulate. This is why central planning doesn't work, right? Mm-hmm. We've run this experiment before. These are some phenomenal economists. If you look at who works for the CBO, who works for the Federal Reserve, who works for the U.S. Treasury, I'm not talking about like the political appointees at the very top. I'm talking about the nuts and bolts, number crunching burners who actually run the place day to day. These people are PhD level economists who are phenomenal econometricians. The problem is that the task is not doable. You cannot make accurate predictions about what's going to happen 10 years in the future. You just can't. And so of course it wound up being off by a lot. And that's, one of the reasons that we shouldn't have government control of the economy, because even the best estimates can be wildly off. And that's assuming that they're doing the best job that they can and that there's no political pressure in there. With the CBO, that is generally the case. It's seen as sort of it's the Congressional Budget Office. It's supposed to be the neutral arbiter who says, look, based on past trends, that's the thing is it's always based on past trends, right? Sure. We have a trend line, mm-hmm. and we're saying, what's the likelihood that we're going to depart from this trend line and by how much? And so right away, you should be thinking, wow, it sounds like this is a very inexact science. Quite right. It very much is. So I will say that if you were working in the Congressional Budget Office and you started your career there in the mid 90s, let's say, and it's a nice cushy government job, you're not going anywhere. You came into government at a time when the talk was about the need to balance the budget, to start generating budget surpluses, and you had multiple bipartisan deals struck during first Bush and then second Clinton that got us on the path to have the national debt paid off by 2010. They were generating budget surpluses when Clinton left office. Mm-hmm. So you had an expectation of fiscal responsibility. And over the decade of the early 2000s there, you had just crisis after crisis. I'm using my air quotes there. Like, they're just the politicians just kept coming up with reasons that we need to spend this money. We need to spend this money. It's a special circumstance. And so if you're sitting there making projections in 2009, 2010 and saying, okay, emergency's over, no more terror war, no more bailouts, we're going to get the ship back on track. What are we looking at? There's an assumption that things are going to return to the way that they are. But if you look at the size of the deficit, there is a clear divergence in the mid 2000s where deficits became normalized, routinized, and started to grow very large. Initially it was $500 million, and then it crept up towards $1 trillion, then it passed $1 trillion, and it kind of made the news cycle for a minute. Now we're facing, according to the Congressional Budget Office, $2 trillion annual deficits from now until the mid 2030s. And I talk about that in the book. I mean, this is when Elon Musk says this is not sustainable, blah, blah, blah. We need to. Yeah, that's true. The problem is the sorts of cuts that he wants to make are not going to help at all, because it's the entitlements and the defense expenditures that need to be cut, and those are the things that are not going to be cut. You can trim some fat here and there, and I'm all for trimming some fat. My worry is that people are going to lose the forest for the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to say, "Oh wow, look, we saved $100 million." And I'm not scoffing at $100 million. I'm not one of those people who says, "Well, who cares? It was just $100 million." $100 million, if it's being wasted, I mean, obviously, I believe we should cut government spending to zero. But just the fact of the matter is, $100 million is just it's nothing. It's nothing. What's the difference between $1 billion and $1 trillion?
Mm-hmm.
Old math joke. Basically $1 trillion, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not even close. Like, the orders of magnitude are so far apart. And and so that's one of the points that I make about the national debt is the problem is the structural deficits that are politically just untouchable. You just can't do anything about it. I mean, it'd be as easy as Congress passing a law, just axing benefits, gutting the Pentagon's budget, but this stuff is politically untouchable. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's spend a few minutes then for each of the main sections. So starting off with the U.S. public debt, what is it? So you actually have in there, because this was illustrated via from when you were writing in March of 2024, talking about that national debt clock. As of March 2024 is just over $34 trillion, which comes out to $100,000 per person. But then when you account for government unfunded liabilities, that goes up to over $150 trillion, approximately $450,000 per person, which is already shady at best. But when you figure that we're talking about per person, we're not talking about per taxpayer or tax-paying household, because fewer than 60% of U.S. households are actually paying anything in. We have more tax feeders than we do, or so many tax feeders compared to tax users. So let's kind of jump on that section a little bit. Something that I've said, Joseph, on the show several times before is that you're right. You've already mentioned this a number of times that, I'm old enough to remember that you would you have politician A and politician B, and one of them, depending possibly on who's in power, but generally the one who paints himself as right wing and conservative, would say national debt. We got to take care of the national debt. Well, for one, that didn't happen, obviously. But two, you don't even hear it anymore. It's just completely left public policy discussion. And something that I have said on the show a number of times is it's kind of like if you're out there playing catch with your kids, and then a MLB player comes out and throws 104 mile per hour fastball. That's such a faster ball than I can throw, then that there's just no scale for it. You don't even say, you just say, wow, that's fast. If he threw one that was 50, I would say, wow, that's fast. If he threw one that was 80, I'd say, wow, that's fast. They're just all fast compared to my reference point, right? So when you say to me, Alan, we got to do something about this national debt because we got $150 trillion in unfunded liabilities. What do people say? They say, wow, that's a lot. Well, to people, they would say, oh, we have $80 million in unfunded liabilities. Oh, wow, that's a lot. People can't even grasp a number. It's like a number gets so big that it becomes an imaginary number. It's not real. No one can fathom what that amount of money looks like. So with that kind of as the basis, do you feel like that's the problem with addressing it? Or do you think it's just a matter of people walking down the street, they don't feel it? When government spends another $50 billion today, they didn't feel the hurt, and so they don't recognize it. What do you think?
Well, I think you raise a couple of really good points there. Number one is the size of the numbers. It's not any individual person's fault. I mean, like you said, these are numbers that are so big that, you know, even for someone who's used to dealing with these numbers on a day-to-day basis, they're incredible. They're they're unimaginable. You can't even wrap your head around these numbers. They're just so far beyond what our ordinary experience of life is. So that's one problem. Is a problem of explaining the magnitude of the problem that we have. And so I've written articles trying to explain that to people in terms of like, what would paying off the debt take? What would it look like? Or even keeping it just where it is, not falling any further behind. And it's very daunting. It's a very difficult political path. And I say political. I always come back to saying it's political. The problem is not that the U.S. economy is not generating enough revenue, taxable revenue, for the U.S. government. That's simply not the case. The economy is incredibly productive. It's churning out taxable incomes and transactions left and right. The problem is that the government has continued to spend well in excess of its tax receipts and refuses to cut spending when it is politically dangerous for them to do so. And I always explain it to my students like this, because you see, there's just a very obvious problem of short-term incentive horizon here, right? So I'm a rep. Spending bills must originate in the House. I have to go before my electorate every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
If I come back to you and I say, guys, guess what? I cut your Social Security. I cut your Medicare. I cut the pork that was coming to our district. Also, I raised taxes a little bit. So we are really on our way to fiscal sustainability. I might as well start packing up my things in my office in DC, because I'm going to be voted out, either in the primary or in the general. And so that's really the problem. That's really the problem. It's in part of a public problem. You have to create a safe space for a politician to do a difficult decision, because politicians are cowardly and weak and venal. You know, you have to go after politically sensitive stuff. So it's difficult. It's very difficult. Well, we'll see what happens. But it's definitely alarming that it's really not seriously discussed. It's really not seriously discussed at all.
Well, jumping forward here a little bit, now this will be an interesting little tie-in, because I know the last time you were here, we talked about your book, The Fake China Threat. So in the section of how it works, you actually have a little section in here that talks about the debt. You know, we have this debt, people buy the debt. You know, the debt is owned by different entities. And of course, this is something you in fact do hear in political discourses. Oh, it's China, as our commander in chief would say. China owns everything. China's buying all the land, which of course we addressed that the last time you here. But you know, of course, China also owns all the debt. You know, America's in trouble because, man, such a huge chunk of the American debt is actually owned by the Chinese. But you actually have in here that while it is true that China does own a portion of the debt, it's because I think that's one of those things that you tend to hear. You'll hear people say, oh, well, didn't you know that China owns something like 90% of the U.S. debt? It's like, well, no, actually, that's not even remotely close to true. So let's go ahead and just nip that in the bud for the people that say, well, I recognize that the debt is bad, but the reason they think the debt is bad is because, well, China's buying everything up. Is that true, Joseph? China's buying everything up, and that's why the debt's bad?
No, China owns a very small portion of the small portion of the debt that is owned by foreign governments. So it's a small portion that's owned by foreign governments, and China then owns a small portion of that. And the reason they own it is largely because it's considered a safe haven asset, a so-called risk-free asset that will generate some yield for them. And they're trying to suppress consumption in their own country in order to just focus on exports. So there's a whole tie in there, but it's that they own an amount of debt that is trivial. You know, it's not like if we defaulted on our debt to China, which I've seen people say, well, we owe it to China, we'll just not pay them back. It's like, even if you did haircut the Chinese and like just rip it up and default on we owe the Chinese, like I'd have to run the numbers on this and do some projections, but I'm fairly certain that the act of defaulting on those obligations would cause a spike in our interest rate, in our government's borrowing rate, that would almost equal what the Chinese hold of our debt within a couple of years. So the resulting interest rate spike from the higher perceived credit risk of loaning money to the U.S. government would basically make it a wash. Yeah, just like so much of the discourse surrounding China, it is nonsense. But you have to have an enemy. You have to have an enemy. You need someone to hate.
Well, we're running short on time, so since we need to have something to hate, we'll hate the conclusion. Of course, you ending with why does it matter? Which that's obviously the rub, right? We've already talked a little bit about how this is a politically impossible subject to broach, but also if you're just on the street level discussing this with people walking up and down the sidewalk, it's just you're just getting dead stares and drool coming out of the side of their mouth. They either don't know or don't care or just simply can't fathom it. It's a rational ignorance type of a thing. But one thing I did want us to make sure that we touched on is you do have a section in there where you talk about servicing the debt. Now, I think that at least hopefully most people have a concept for what servicing a debt is. Goodness knows there's a lot of Americans out there who racked up their credit cards. So those people know what servicing debt looks like. And I happen to know on good authority that there's a lot of those. But of course, we're talking about debt that is so significant. You want to talk about those budget projections, talking about the enormous amount of our GDP that just goes into servicing the debt. And of course, the number's only going one way. So if you could give us a minute or two talking about, why that ballooning debt actually matters to people and what servicing a debt of that magnitude looks like.
Okay, that's a great point. Let's just first establish something very basic in case any of you are looking at this. When you borrow money, you're essentially taking value from the future and bringing it to the present to use now. Now, this is not a problem so long as what you use the money for in the present creates things of value so that the future can pay it back. Now, in terms of the government, we already know that the government is not disciplined by the profit and loss mechanism. This is how businesses are disciplined to be able to make good credit risks and assessments and projects and things like that. Look at what happened with Build Back Better. Look at all that money that got appropriated for all those projects. How much of them projects got built? You see that national charging network anywhere? Some high-speed trains zipping around that I don't know about? No, of course not, because that is the government. It's terrible at allocating capital. And when it tries to do that, and when it does all that big borrowing, it's competing with private investment, and it's misallocating resources. It's distorting the market. And when the government is intervening in the bond market like that, what's happening is it's manipulating the interest rate. And this is extremely deleterious to the economy because it makes it hard for businesses to properly assess risks, and there are all sorts of negative side effects to that, which I go into in the book. I've only got a couple minutes here, so I'll shift to talking about servicing the debt. Okay, sure. So we've already borrowed all that money, wasted it on wars and boondoggles and things that never even materialized and all that good stuff. Okay, So now we got this huge pile of debt. We've got no bullet trains. Nothing like that. Nothing that's going to improve the economy or its productive capacity. We have to repay this debt, though. That's debt service. That's the interest on the debt we already owe. So we're not even talking about the principal. This is just the interest on the money that we've already borrowed. It is set to become the single biggest expenditure that the federal government makes. Think about that. Bigger than the defense budget, bigger than entitlement outlays. That's the situation that we have gotten ourselves into. And incredibly, this happened 18 months ago. I wrote an article about it. I don't know if I mentioned it in the book, but Janet Yellen, who has been Treasury Secretary, Fed Chair, right? Like she has been at the pinnacle of the American fiscal and monetary structure for a decade, right? Mm-hmm. No one should know the numbers and the seriousness of this issue better than her. Unbelievably, during the Biden administration, she failed to lock in financing for the existing a huge transfer, like $8 trillion of it was going to be coming due. And instead of saying, you know, these rock bottom interest rates, really, I should lock some of this debt down at these rock bottom interest rates, she didn't do it. So we're actually doing like a rolling financing of like a huge portion of this debt right now at like 5, 6, 7%. So just that one error. And again, when you're talking about government, see, if a business makes a bad decision, well, that's going to negatively affect those workers and their families. And, you know, if it's a bigger business in a town, that could have some effect on the town. But really, things are going to get sorted out relatively quickly. When the government makes a mistake, the implications for all of us are huge. This is such a costly mistake. You can actually, there's a graph in the book, I believe, where I show the acceleration in the size of the interest payments servicing the debt, because these policymakers who just thought in the wake of the 2008-2009 financial crisis, well, we're just going to have low interest rates forever and money is basically free. Those days are done. That was a terrible policy decision anyway. It created all sorts of distortions in the bond market and incentivized all sorts of financial speculation, which I actually talk about in the book. But yeah, just, oh goodness. The government has made such a huge mess of our money and of the government's finances. I think it's a fool's errand to keep going down this road. I think we just need to tear the whole structure down and do something different.
So you do in fact have that, ladies and gentlemen. So not only is there demonstrating the big spike in national debt right around 2020, imagine, I can't remember what happened there, but indeed that was also accompanied with a spike in the interest rate of the debt at the same time as this huge spike in the debt. So I'm going to leave the rest of that in the book so that people can go out and pick it up for themselves. It's concise. It's got all the numbers laid in there for you so that you can show your friends. This is why I can't buy wings along with pizza tonight at the party. But before we go, Joseph, where can people go to check out more of your stuff and get a copy of the book?
Well, I write a weekly column at the Libertarian Institute where I'm the Ralph Franco Fellow. I also write a couple of columns each month at the Mises Institute. I got the books on there. I usually post links to my lectures. They're actually for my students, really, but I've had people tell me they enjoy it. So if you look me up on like YouTube or something, you can watch like history and political science lectures of me. And that's really it. That's where I'm at. I'm at the Libertarian Institute, the Mises Institute, and at Spring Arbor. So.
And I also happen to know that if you follow Joseph, I wanted to pull up your @ on Twitter just so that I make sure that I get it right. I think we also get some Missouri basketball news. Oh
yes, go Tigers! Yes, I did. I went to Missouri, And so horrible disappointment there.
Oh, well.
Horrible disappointment.
Well,
I just don't understand. We're playing a team where the tallest guy's 6'8", and you leave all our 7-footers on the bench. What's going on, Coach Gates? If you're listening to this, hit me up. I would love to talk some shop with you. What's going on there, man? Come on. And then against Vandy, you don't foul. What's going on there? Oh man. Yeah, I'm at Solis_Mullen. And yes, I am a sports ball guy.
Well, good. We love sports ball around here. Go Vols. But on that note, we're out of time, so we're going to get you out of here with the bonus round question. Joseph, are you ready?
Okay. I'm ready.
All right. If you have 2 lasagnas and you stick the one lasagna on top of the other lasagna, is it still 2 lasagnas, or is it now just simply a lasagna?
Dang, that's a tough question. I'm going to say that it's a lasagna because there is no rule as far as I know about how many layers of the lasagna can have to constitute a single lasagna. So I don't know on what basis you would say, now we have 1, now we have 2. Now you just have a super lasagna.
So you say it's now just a single lasagna?
I'm saying it's just a single lasagna now.
That is correct. It is now just a single lasagna. 2-0. 2-0.
Right.
On It's Too Late. Joseph, thank you so much for hanging out with us, buddy. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's always such a pleasure.
Guys, we're going to be back to wrap up the show right after this commercial break. Don't go away. If you're enjoying tonight's show, consider supporting the program by becoming a member of our Patreon. That's over at patreon.com/Alan Mosley. Like our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Alan Mosley TV. You can follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/Alan Mosley TV. Subscribe to our YouTube page. It's youtube.com/Alan Mosley TV. But if you're more of a listener than a watcher, you can get us on your favorite podcasting platform of choice thanks to Spotify. It's Too Late or Alan Mosley TV. Also, don't forget to get your tickets to the 7th annual It's Too Late live show coming to you Saturday, May 17th in beautiful Columbia, Tennessee.
Everything's missing.
It's gonna be a bad one, Dave. You wanna tell everybody what happened, or?
Yeah, my Stream Deck went blank, and then I went and just tapped the button on it to wake it up, and now it's just one button on the screen, and it was a transition button. I don't even know where that button came from.
Are you leading us to believe that you tapping a button randomly on your Stream Deck during the interview would hit a button?
Yeah, it was all black. Look at this. Like, shit, I don't know if I can reach. Look, it's all... That's the one button I hit. It was black.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a transition button.
And... I'm
not sure how to bring them all back.
So in the same way that some people will just read the last chapter of a book to see if they like the ending. Oh. In a very similar aura.
Kind of the same.
Some people with their Stream Deck going blank, instead of saying, "Hey Alan, got a problem with the Stream Deck. Can you queue up the transition to the finale when it's time?" No. You just hit a button.
Yeah, just a blank button.
Yeah. You just hit one and see what happens.
Okay, I see.
You've ruined the whole show.
That was the only button that would have did that too. Now that I'm looking at it.
Like you cut off. Like the whole show's ruined. You know that, right?
Most of it, yeah.
Like all the work that
Kermit.
has to be done to fix it. Like having to take the finished product, edit in the full guest interview where the abbreviated interview is, and then pop in the ending of this where I'm yelling at you. I've got to go on all the platforms that we streamed, take everything down, edit it all back in, and re-upload it. And I don't have time to do that because I got a job or stuff to do this week. And I'm traveling again this weekend. So I have to do all that because in a moment of crisis, your answer was, let's just see what happens. What if I do this? And then...
I mean, you have options. You can get another producer. I'm sure there's better ones out there.
So anyway, Val Kilmer died. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, first thing this morning.
Yeah, that sucks. Throw that in there. I like how chat's more animated now than they were the whole show.
It's pretty quiet.
This is what they live for. Let's get these scrolling here real quick. I mean, I guess it's good that I have the guest interview as a separate file, and I can just boop, pop that right in there. I think I'm just gonna stay here for a minute, decompress. You know. Ryan says, "Does this mean no after party?"